Hello, I'm glad you were able to find our Week 1 lecture for the course. What we'll do is go over the syllabus very briefly, catching just a couple of the high points. We'll take a look at relevant pages for the Chapter 1 reading assignment, Chapter 2, and Chapter 5, and we'll give you a little more background on ethics in general, which I think you'll find helpful as you work on your discussion board lesson and an upcoming essay. I think the student outcomes section of your syllabus is especially helpful as a guiding document, if you will. It provides the context for the rest of the course. This is what technical writing is, and these are the things that we hope that you can accomplish by the end of the semester. In order to be successful in these efforts, there are certain evaluation tools I use to see that you have mastered the areas, and you can see that there's memos, articles, and graphics at 10 points each. There's an ethics essay, which is worth 25, a collaborative document. You'll be working with a partner to build a brochure. You'll do a feasibility study which satisfies the requirement for a formal investigative report, and you'll do a resume and a cover letter to go with it. Ongoing throughout the semester are the discussion board assignments, as well as occasional quizzes, exercises, and short responses. You can see that it will about 300 points is what it will work out to. It always varies a little bit because not each class is exactly like another, but the percentages are always the same. Nothing new will be added. That is the workload that you see in front of you. There's been a new development in terms of email, and I wanted to include that in the syllabus. In the past, it was possible for you to forward any email to your UAA account to your own personal Yahoo or Google or Gmail account. That's going to stop. You will need to access your UAA account to get email from me or anyone else in the whole university system. Now, in terms of the class itself, our ordinary communication, we will be using the message system within Blackboard. So this is not really a big issue for us, but every once in a while we do have to use email. So please keep in mind that you need to access it regularly. Delete old emails from both the inbox and the send box, and also empty the trash can. If you don't empty the trash can, the mail is still there, it's going to pile up, and pretty soon you won't be able to receive any incoming mail. And speaking of technology, I provided you with the contact phone number and email address for the technology desk here at KPC, the IT help desk at UAA. You can see that those hours are expanded quite a bit. And then this site, this Moodle site, provides some really helpful tutorials on various Blackboard functions. I've used a couple of them myself, and they're long enough to teach you and short enough not to bore you. So if there's things like how the discussion board works or blog or things like that, go to one of those tutorials and you know what? In a few minutes you'll have it figured out. And I'd like to point out some highlights from your reading assignment for each of your chapters. In Chapter 1, the Introduction to Technical Communication, I think you'll find the list of types of technical communication on pages 5 to 6 to be really helpful. I think sometimes we don't realize the broad array of document types that can fit under technical documentation. For example, you're going to create a travel brochure. Who would think that's technical writing, but it is. So take a look at that list. We will be doing a lot of the items on that list, as you can see by comparing it to the syllabus. So having this big picture before we get started on the individual topics and assignments, I think you'll find very helpful. In Chapter 2, Preparing the Effective Technical Document, take a look at the checklist on page 20. It relates to creative and critical thinking, and it's a wonderful tool to help you not only in technical documents, but also even in regular essays. That checklist, I think, will be very valuable to you. In Chapter 5, you were asked to read, or Chapter 5 is entitled Weighing the Ethical Issues, and the discussion board assignment this week deals specifically with ethics. If you look on page 83 of Chapter 5, you'll get some good background to help you through that discussion board activity. It's a diagram that shows the three sometimes conflicting forces that you consider when you're making an ethical decision. OIC: obligations, ideals, and consequence. And it's not an easy process working your way through it. It's something that's going to involve your critical thinking skills, your creative thinking skills. On the other hand, it can be a lot of fun. I use a little mnemonic for remembering these three aspects of ethical decisions. OIC: OIC: obligations, ideals, and consequences. And let me very briefly just take you a little bit deeper into the history, if you will, or the seminal philosophers that are associated with each of these. Deontological ethics is also known as duty ethics. Feel free to call it duty ethics. You can remember each of them because they both start with a D. So when you see deontological, think duty. Immanuel Kant is the philosopher most closely associated with this. In particular, he has something called the categorical imperative. You might want to look into that more fully if you get a chance. At any rate, categorical imperative duty ethics relates to the obligations, the O aspect in our OIC model. Relating to the I, the ideals in our OIC model, is virtue ethics. Doing the virtuous thing, doing the moral thing. Aristotle is often associated with this. I'm particularly fond of his philosophy of the golden mean. In our OIC model, obligations, ideals, and consequences, the philosopher you can associate with the C, John Stuart Mill. Consequence ethics, utilitarian ethics. What is most useful? What does the most good for the most people? Kind of reminds you of democracy, doesn't it? The little bit of a flaw there is that kind of takes care of the majority, but the minority opinion isn't, I don't think, adequately reflected in utilitarian ethics. But perhaps we can go into a distributive justice another time, but I think for now this will wrap up our study of ethics. So we have now completed listening to Week 1 recorded lecture. Again, thank you so much for finding it. And it's time to move on now. You can move on to the discussion board activity. I hope you enjoyed, and I look forward to hearing to your responses.